Can I just start by saying how damn good does this map look? Like, my God, is this Forge or is this a dev map? Like, it's honestly hard to tell at this point. This map kind of blurs the lines. Of course, this is Damnation or Salvation in Halo Infinite, remake of a old favorite. One thing I find that's super interesting about this map in comparison to others is the high ground, the way that verticality works in this map and how insane this verticality really is. I mean, back in a game like Halo CE, this type of high ground would have been very powerful. Weapons worked a little differently back in Halo CE. With Infinite, we've got a BR that, you know, shoots practically a laser beam. This thing's very powerful on its own. So having high ground like this could be pretty oppressive, but Infinite has a lot of movement, like equipment, like the grapple, repulsor, and the slide to kind of get around some of the power of high ground. So really interesting how it changes gameplay on this map and makes things feel fresh and also creates new options for skill jumps and routes that I can't wait to show off. So let's take a jump tour of the map, I guess. We'll explore. I'll show off some stuff I think is really cool and really just kind of take in the sights because the sights are pretty damn good looking on the map. I like the fusion of Forerunner and Banished kind of art or styles, I guess. Like they fuse the styles together in a really interesting creative way. So, you know, credit to, I think it's Infinite Forge's Black Picture on the 343 multiplayer team. There's probably a small team, so I'm sorry if I don't get everybody, but unbelievable work. Now, these honeycombs are actually crouch jump height, just barely. You got to be really tight with your spacing and the timing of your jump, and then hold crouch, and you can actually skip the clamber here. Same with this one. A little bit easier, but just tight spacing, and you can crouch jump over it. You can connect from this one. And this is actually a spawn point because I played a lot of FFA on here. Fun for FFA, by the way, but this is a spawn point. You can go from this section with a crouch jump and then do another crouch jump and keep the high ground traverse across this area and skip the clambers at the same time, which is pretty cool. Just barely. You got to be kind of tight with your jump timing. You got boxes here you can slide off of. Any of these ledges, right? Like any of these kind of honeycomb structures. Like if you know curb slides, you'll know where to find them. Same with this one. This right here. I noticed that these honeycombs in general have a bit of like a lip sort of on the edge of them. I think that kind of props you up. Like if you just sprint straight and try to curb slide off this one, it something about the structure makes it difficult. So remember to use an edge lineup if you're ever like not consistently hitting slides. Edge lineups are always that one way to find a curb slide in a situation that like where it's not performing consistently, if that makes sense. So I'm going to be doing a lot of those to hit curb slides in this area. This is a nice one to keep in mind. Of course, this area of the map, nobody wants to just walk through here unprepared, right? Like you've got no cover. There's no way you're sliding on anything here. There's no curb slide, no option, right? So anything you can do to jet yourself out through this section and kind of kill some of this distance as quickly as possible, this is your best bet, assuming you don't kill yourself just by sprinting and timing a slide off that honeycomb. It would be sick if you could slide off this weapon platform. You can stand on this, which is nice, but the way that it's set up, it's too tall to actually slide off of or slide off of reliably. I can't hit a slide off it. There's a lot of different ways to create weapon racks, and I love when you can stand on them personally because they add a new dynamic to movement on the maps, and this map doesn't really incorporate that too well, in my opinion. The other maps I'll show a little later, there's different ways that you can incorporate standing on these racks and use them creatively. And I hope that more Forge developers kind of take advantage of it. So we'll see it later. For now, let's keep exploring. This area is called Junction, I believe. I'm just reading the text on the bottom left-hand corner. I don't know the callouts in this map. I'm also going to bring up the controller overlay. I'm on Bumper Jumper if you guys want to see that as we jump around. There's a shock rifle here. You can't stand on this. There's a box here you can slide off of if you're caught in the corner. This little ledge. I was a little disappointed at first because back in Halo Reach, the Reach version of this map, there was a spring jump that got you up to a ledge around here that you could sit on to make like a sick play at the cost of your life, basically, to stay alive. You can't get up on here. There's an invisible blocker. What I realized recently, though, is you can actually stand inside here and here as well. However, it is extremely difficult. This one's extremely, like, I die most of the time trying to do it. I'm holding crouch and then jumping from a crouch position. And, okay, so we didn't make it in, but we landed in the lower one, thankfully. Now, what's crazy about this area here is you'll notice it's actually too tall to reach and clamber. Like, if I just sprint jump and try to clamber, I'm not going to get it. But if you take advantage of Infinite's kind of unique physics, if you push backwards into this wall, you'll notice there's like a pop-up. I'm going to die. Yeah. Just trying to show it. But basically, pushing backwards props you up. And what you can do is push backwards and then time your jump at the top of the prop up, and you can actually reach the clamber, which is really satisfying to pull off if you hit it. You're doing it at the cost of your life. So, yeah, this cubby, like, I can grapple in just to show you, but jumping into it is extremely... I can't even grapple in just to show you. Oh, that was tight timing. So you can get in here, but it's not very reliable to jump in. I haven't come up with like a strategy that gets me in every time. Whereas with this one, I can kind of like walk off and land on it. And then once you've landed on it, you back up and then we're going to retake. Retakes are a magical thing, are they not? So you walk off, land on this, and then I position myself kind of forward and I walk backwards into it and then time the jump at the top of the prop up and I get a higher jump and I can clamber back to the ledge. So all of this insanity just to stay alive and maybe get back into it. It's like, is it worth it? Probably not. Is it sick? I think so. But anyway, we are in tunnel and then top base. This top base area, I love navigating this section of the map with infinite's like slide, infinite's movement options, because it lets you achieve jumps that would never be possible in Halo CE. Like this area right here, there's no way you're getting up here. But because of curb sliding, if I, like, what I do is I push my body into the wall, hold crouch, jump from a crouch position, so I'm on the edge here, and then sprint slide off and jump. And I can hit a curb slide and reach this with a clamber. If I'm perfect with my execution, I can actually... I can skip the clamber as well. It's tough, but really sick, because you'll spawn here. You just have to remember to kind of back up and then set it up. And then you're looking at a swift rotation to center map. You can also do it off of this section right here. Because of the height of this object, something to do with the shape of the object, you have to do another edge lineup. Curb slide, this one is really tough to do, I find, timing and positioning-wise. And you're also committing, like, notice how I'm facing this direction. If somebody's standing here, you're getting shot for free, right? So you really got to think of when you're doing these edge lineup setups, because I'm giving up all ability to aim my gun or prepare myself for a fight, but I get a rotation if I time it correctly. While we're standing on this box, by the way, this is, of course, curb slide height, but you can stand on this wall panel here, too. You can jump off it with, like, an immediate jump. Just jump, hold, crouch, and then once you feel your feet clip on it, you can jump. But if you push into the wall and then time your release of crouch, like right after your feet go over, you release crouch and then leave my stick on neutral. I'm standing on it now, just barely, so could potentially be useful. You got a commando spawn here. You can stand on top of this, but it's too tall to slide off of, which is unfortunate because this would be a sick rotation. But I found that there's actually like this little lip in the corner here. Hold crouch, jump from a crouch position, and then release crouch in the air. So you get the lowest possible jump and the least amount of downward momentum. So you land on this little like pinpoint, like this little, whatever this tiny little thing is. It's pretty over the top and unnecessary to actually try to set this up. But you know me, I'm always looking for something to slide off. Even just like these little areas in the walls, like you can actually jump off something here. There's like a little panel of sorts. You can't stand on here. You got this bridge section. This is a really, really cool area of the map because you're looking directly down at players who, you know, would not be ready for a fight in this situation, right? You can just like sit right here. What's crazy about this section, though, is there's these two wall panels that you can walk off and land on and jump back to the bridge again. Now, something I realized is if you walk off normally and don't jump immediately, you're going to fall straight off because you have too much downward momentum. But if you walk off and then late jump, it's possible to curb the downward momentum enough so that you can actually land on it following your like jump and stand on it. Like I'll show in a sec here. So I walk off and then late jump when I hit it and hold into the wall. And now I'm standing here. My controller is drifting. Standing here, and I can just sit here and take a fight. And if I'm in trouble, I can jump back up to the bridge. And you can do it over here too, which is honestly pretty sick that that's possible. So really cool. What do we got? We got camo right here. These walls, just like the one on the other side, can all be stood on. It's just there's no convenient way to access them unless you burn equipment, which is not really worth it. You got sniper up here. You got the teleporter, which I'll be checking out in a second. Let's stick to this side of the map, though. Keep exploring. We've got this hallway. There's a rock structure that you can sit up and push yourself into the corner here. which means it's possible to set up a slide for it too. So technically speaking, you can like, you know, slide jump out, take a fight, and then set up a slide at the same time. Same with all of these panels here, which are really interesting. You can like walk around them with your strafe. So you can land on one while taking a fight, shoot, set up a slide. I push myself into the highest point of this, and then sprint slide off it forward and create a sick rotation, and a rotation that you're lining up while you're taking fights, which I think is really awesome personally. Now, because of curve sliding, like you want downward momentum to hit a slide reliably, because this is an upward slope. If you go this direction, actually sliding off it this way is very difficult or almost impossible to do unless you like turn yourself this way and do it like forward on an angle so you can create a downward slope. So I recommend like avoiding trying to slide like this and instead trying to line up your jumps backwards so you land like this so you can set up the rotation more conveniently. And I guess a better word for this structure would be a column and not a panel. Anyway, you've got a heat wave apparently. I don't know if this would ever be a competitive map. I think it honestly has potential. I don't know what kind of weapons they put on here in competitive, but I would love to see, you know, competitive game types played on here. And maybe something we can run on my live stream. Get some 8s going or something on the stream. Got a box here you can slide off. All of these segments can be slid off, right? Before we go to that room, let's go down here for the rocket spawn. This area down here has a lift. I know it should be possible to... I don't know how I just did whatever I just did there. It should be possible to lower lift altitude, but I can't find a reliable way to do it. So if you know how this works, maybe let me know in the comments. But like if you go into the lift, you go up at, you know, your set height. If I mash crouch or slide into it, let's say, and then mash crouch, maybe it's lower. Like it's not really lower, right? Like one time I got a hit off the lift that was like perfect, and my feet just nailed the ledge. And there was no air time, which would be ideal. I just don't know how to recreate it. You've got this section here, which you can edge line up, curb slide, all of these. Boxes you can slide off here too, if you get the point, right? You can, off this rock, set up a slide. So if you're going for rockets here, the strat would be to land on this one, and then hit the curb slide, grab the rockets, hit the lift, or whatever you want to do. This whole section here uses clamber in a really interesting way, in ways that we don't get to appreciate in Infinite. Like a lot of people tend to say, you know, clambering is not very skillful, right? It kind of gives you easy access to jumps. Like this area is a good example of how clamber can add skillful options to movement. This whole section is just a series of clambers. There's this one point. So obviously there's repulse here. If you don't want to repulse, there's this tiny little like vertex point on this rock that you can actually just barely reach with a clamber. And the only way to clamber this is with perfect spacing in front of the rock. Like you don't want to be pushing into the wall too much before that jump, or else you're not going to hit this like little tiny vertex. And I personally think stuff like this is really cool. It takes a lot of, you know, precise positioning and skill really to hit this clamber. Now, of course, pushing into this wall and phasing through this geometry is kind of a, you know, a no-no as far as like map design goes. So I don't know what to say about this. I hope they don't get rid of this little vertex, right? Because I think something like that is skillful and takes time to set up and gets you out of here in a unique way. If you really want to go crazy and challenge yourself, it might be possible to find a way to shimmy as far out as you can on this wall and then sprint jump, land in here, and then hit the backwards. Like, if you're nuts, go ahead and challenge yourself. See if you can somehow get to this ledge with normal jumps. Assuming you do hit the clamber up here, you can connect into another one immediately. This is pretty precise to line up. I mean, I'm just jumping, clambering from this position, but if you jump from like out here, you're not going to reach it, right? So you really got to kind of position yourself properly beforehand so you get within that clamber range. If you're in this pit area here, what I do is I push myself up against this column and then jump while I'm pushed up against the column. That gets me the clamber from this area 100% of the time. And then once you're up here, sprint jump, and you can reach a third clamber. Now, this one's a really risky clamber to go for because you're vulnerable to gunfire. You're going to be caught in the animation. But just the fact that it's possible instead of the lift, I think is pretty damn cool that you can do that. Of course, assuming that you actually hit the clamber. Let's actually go up there. So push into the column, jump, clamber, and then sprint, jump, clamber up. We got this area of the map here. There's a couple boxes here. You know what I'm thinking. If there's a box, there's a curb slide opportunity. This is a really tough curb slide to hit. Something to do with the box. I don't know. It's like the shape of these boxes, it's always different. Like, you got to really kind of approach every curb slide ledge in like you're in a unique way, depending on the shape of the geometry. And that's just something you learn over time with this tech. But this one, and it's pretty tough to set up. What I do is I sprint, slide, jump, and try to perfectly line up that jump to this corner, this edge right here, to give me a chance to hit the sprint, curb slide off, and then get the jump that reaches to this spot, assuming I want this crazy rotation. And I'm probably not going to be ready for a fight down low while I'm setting it up. So just think of the timing for something like this. Similar to the other side of the map, you can recreate that jump lineup on the other side of the map to get to this same spot as well. What's cool about this is you've got a lot more cover protection here. If somebody's down this hallway or you want to avoid this fight and kind of reposition, as an alternative to going through the lift, I guess, you can create an edge lineup, curb slide, rotate to this section of the map, get the grapple, instead of exposing yourself to maybe top map with the teleporter. Just a different route, which I think, honestly, is pretty cool. Of course, we got all this equipment on the map. I might as well actually use it, right? So there is a repulsor down here. What I do think is really sick about the repulse in this section of the map is just how perfectly it's designed to allow you to access these points very conveniently, right? You just, this one as well, just jump repulse together, and you'll get right up with a clean jump. By the way, you can clamber that little corner there. For this one, there's like a slope to the wall that props you up, meaning if you don't kill yourself, you can do a late jump up the wall and get up there that way conveniently. Let's quickly get back here. What I do is I sprint into it, I get the prop up, late jump, and then clamber, and you're right up. Easier to do, in my opinion, than the corner clamber over here, but very risky. You miss it, you fall down and die, just like I did. One other thing I want to point out before we repulse back up to the top, there's a little spot here beside this doorway. This door here, you just sprint, jump. You can like clamber or land in it with a crouch jump. Pretty sneaky, honestly, if you take advantage of that. There's, okay, repulse. Couple different ways to get up to this bridge with repulse. This way I think is really cool. Just from the floor, obviously, to this section. Now, this area here is actually too tall to reach with the repulse jump, but the designer knew what they were doing for this section of the map, because what they created is a little sneaky ledge jutting out the wall here that's perfect height for a repulse jump, and something that you can shimmy off and land on as well. If you're, I'm being a little too timid with it. If you're careful with your movement, you can land in this spot and sit there. So technically, if you're really used to this section of the map, which clearly I'm not yet, in the middle of a fight, you could back down and land on it and wait for a sec. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with it. It's just, it's such a tight ledge. You really got to make sure you're holding close to the wall when you land on it. And then something I realized, and I'm not sure if it would ever make sense to do this or if this was even intentional, is you can land on this ledge and jump your way all the way across to this little shock rifle area, balcony on the other side, which is pretty tough to do. Got to be very precise. I don't know if you just do it for style or what, but you'll notice I'm also sprinting and jumping. I hit sprint the instant before I jump to get as much distance as possible, and then precisely land on a tiny little platform there, jump the instant I hit it, so I stay up, right? Because if you'll probably slide right off just landing on it, but craziness. Personally, though, I think stuff like this is sick, because if you miss that jump, you die, or you lose all of your high ground, which, you know, might be as good as dead in the end of the day. So I think it's really damn cool. Just to kind of close this off, of course, the teleporter, one of the coolest little segments of the map. It is a little awkward to navigate through. Sometimes it kills all your forward momentum. So something I tried is like, can I slide into it and then come through it with, you know, high speed if I hit like a curb slide off this tire, let's say. But what it does is it zaps your momentum immediately and you come through just not moving anymore. So you can't do that. In general, just taking fights back and forth between it is honestly really fun to do. You can just troll pretty hard, but really a cool little segment of the map. Before we just kind of close things out here, I still do have a repulse, so I'll show off some little spots that I've noticed, like little areas you can kind of get yourself caught inside. There's little segments here that you can sit up, like stuff like this. I don't know if, you know, if this is, you can let me know in the comments. What do you think of spots like this? Like personally, I say if a high spot like this is vulnerable, And if you're seen, you can die very quickly. Like, you're only doing this to get a one-shot advantage, let's say. I would say fair game, right? Like, these spots are exclusive to Repulsor and Grapple to get into. So they're not, like, super damaging for gameplay. They'll give you that, like, little advantage, one-shot advantage. But once you're seen, you're screwed, right? So, I don't know. Something like that I think is fair game. If it's like, if you're inside geometry, like in a wall or something, then, you know, that's a different story. And you're, like, unkillable. But as long as you kill... This one may be a little bit sus, right? You can shoot back, apparently, right? Like, a couple little sneaky spots up in here. Overall, this is really sick, though. I spent a lot longer on this map than I planned to, so I think I'm only just going to show this map, to be honest, guys. What I might do is segment out different videos with different maps so we can walk through. I did want to talk about this little weapon platform sliding, like, idea I talked about earlier. Like, this one is blocked off purposefully, right? I hope that devs can start to open up these platforms, let you stand on them. Because in other maps, like Perilous and, like, Starboard, that I recommend you even bookmark even before I showcase them, those maps have accessible weapon racks that you can slide off, and they're designed in different ways, and some of them promote better slide, you know, rotations than others. I think this is a really cool, like, subtle little feature in gameplay that I hope that devs start to unlock on their maps. Anyway, that's Salvation. This map has immediately become one of my all-time Forge favorites. I can't wait to see what Infinite Forges and Team continues to create, because, my God, if this is... You've set the bar high, let's just say, with this map. It's pretty damn incredible. What do you guys think of the map? I assume you've already played on it. What maps do you want me to walk through? Hopefully you enjoy these little map, you know, skill jump walkthroughs. And, yeah, what do you think of putting this one into matchmaking? I think it should be in matchmaking immediately. My only issue with this map, and I think it's pretty known, is just performance on the map. With more players, it can be a little iffy. Frame rate can kind of stutter at times, and I think that can vary quite a bit depending on what you're playing on. I imagine if you're on like an OG Xbox One or, you know, lower spec machine, it might not perform as well, which is unfortunate. I think we will see more and more optimizations down the line to bring things up to par so we can see these maps, you know, more playable in a matchmaking environment. That's the only real thing I think holding it back, other than just the waiting game and, you know, how long it takes for 343 to create some of these playlists. But otherwise, it's an S tier map. Download it immediately. If you guys like the content, remember to like and sub to the channel, and I'll be back with more. Good luck on the way.